This never ends. This never ends. I've been working on this program for about 8 hours, 9 hours. I went on the air and it cut me off. Now we're back. I don't dare start us off with the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem at now we're so late. I don't know what the deal was. We're going to start right in with our program tonight. I want to talk about a lot of different things that we have ahead of us. One of the things that I want to talk about is Hurricane Lee. I'm going to start off talking about Hurricane Lee. This has been a prime thing for a lot of people to talk about even during the past few days. As you know, Hurricane Lee was way out in the mid-Atlantic, the South Mid-Atlantic, around the Leeward Islands. It's now moved past the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. It's now out in the middle of the Atlantic again. But it's closer to the United States. I want to show you exactly how close here. Okay? Right here. This is a satellite view showing the hurricane just off the coast of Florida, literally. Still several hundred miles east of Florida, just north and east of Cuba here. Okay? This is where they have it. You can see the distinct eye. Hurricane Lee was a Category 5 storm. It's now been downgraded to a Category 3. Still a hefty hurricane. Still a very destructive hurricane. Hurricane Lee is now still very large. It's raising wind and surf dangers along the east coast of North America. Hurricane Lee will still bring perilous rip currents and surf conditions at beaches along the U.S. East Coast this week. Right now, the beaches off of eastern Florida, everyone needs to stay out of the water. High storm surge still. It's still far off the coast, but there's high storm surge, higher water than normal, and rip currents. That is the biggest reason to stay out of the water. Rip currents. Okay? I can't stress enough about what will happen if you folks or anybody gets near the water. It surges inland over the beach and you get swept out to sea. That's not the way you want to spend your day. While the strong storm is yet to make landfall anywhere, forecasters are warning people to look out for wind and rain hazards. Lee is currently a Category 3 hurricane according to the National Hurricane Center. It's also much larger than it was just even a few days ago. Lee's hurricane force winds extend up and out upwards of 90 miles on any side of the hurricane. The hurricane force winds and the outer bands of the hurricane extend out 90 miles from the center. This is a long way. Extreme long distance. Okay? And with those tropical force winds extending out for another 205 miles, anything can happen. Literally. It's still off the coast of Florida and even near the coast of Cuba. Compare that to last Friday when its hurricane force winds extended out only 35 miles. Now here's some things to know about Hurricane Lee. As it starts to move north along the east coast, let me show you another picture here of what the scientists are saying it's going to do. Now, I do not necessarily agree with this cone of uncertainty that the National Hurricane Center and NOAA has put out. Okay? How long has this hurricane been out there in the Atlantic and it's basically stayed put? the same latitude, it stayed put. Okay? The precise path of this storm remains uncertain. As early this afternoon, Lee was packing winds of 115 miles per hour and moving west-northwest at a vertical crawl of 6 miles per hour. It is expected to turn more northward by the middle of this week, and the timing of that move will be influenced, and it will be affecting the U.S. Northeast and Atlantic Canada. The current forecast track shows Lee's center moving towards New Brunswick, Canada, but along the way its winds could reach shores from New York to Maine. Now, folks, I think we have a lot more to be concerned about besides New York and Maine. This hurricane is just off the coast now. It can still swerve more westward. Okay, that is my concern. That is a lot of people's concern. When they first started saying that Lee was going to move north, it was staying put. It had hardly any motion at all, and it's still sitting there here Tuesday. Okay? Just even yesterday they said it would show movement up and towards South and North Carolina, but it has not. It has stayed put. Everyone should be aware of what is going on. This is not good. For that hurricane to be sitting in place, it's not good. As long as it's sitting in the warmer ocean waters, this hurricane could still grow very strong. It remains too soon to know what level of additional impacts the Hurricane Lee might have along the northeastern U.S. coast and Atlantic Canada later this week, possibly, and into this weekend. The good news, according to the National Hurricane Center, is that the storm will likely show significant weakening by this weekend as it crosses over cooler waters north of the Gulf Stream, if it doesn't start moving. And it will just stay there in the Atlantic Ocean and churn. This also would not be good. But even as the Hurricane Center noted that welcome development, it cautioned that the expanding wind field of Lee will produce impacts well away from the storm center. Even a glancing blow from Lee right now at this point is dangerous. With such a massive storm, Lee's eye wall doesn't have to make landfall or even come within 100 miles of the shore to make an impact on land. Even in those areas that remain far from the storm center, the Hurricane Center said since wind and rainfall hazards will extend well away from the center as Lee grows in size, and it will, people should continue to monitor the updates on Hurricane Lee and Lee's forecast, at least during the next several days. Bermuda is under a tropical storm watch. Lee's forecast track sees a storm staying west of Bermuda, but its huge wind field is expected to affect the island of Bermuda. The Bermuda Weather Service issued a tropical storm watch earlier this morning, warning that people on and around the island could see wind speeds from 34 to 63 knots, 39 to 72.5 miles per hour. That is significant. Significant swells and significant waves. Local conditions are expected to start to improve by Friday, according to the National Hurricane Center. The storm rapidly intensified last week and became a named storm 1 week ago. 1 day later, it became a hurricane and intensified at a very startling rapid rate, quickly becoming a Category 5 storm. It later lost some of that strength, but the storm also got bigger and it slowed down. That is where the problem is. The hurricane has gotten bigger and it has slowed down. Let me put up that satellite map again so you can see exactly what's going on. That satellite map is what we should be concerned about. Okay? We can look at these other forecast issues, but looking at this hurricane off the shore of North America is not pretty. It's not pretty at all. The frequency of intense and damaging tropical storms and hurricanes have been linked to climate change. But as you know, I don't believe in that, and I don't believe anyone should. That is a communist thought. It has nothing to do with full, hard science. It has nothing to do with hard science at all. But as NOAA has stated, warming of the surface ocean from human-induced change is likely fueling more powerful tropical storms. Now, folks, that's what NOAA wants us to say because it's a government thing. Don't trust the government. If the government comes knocking, walk away. If the government comes walking and says, we're the government, we're here to help, slam the door in their face. Okay? All this supposed climate change, oh, the weather is not climate change. It's man-induced change. It's people flying planes and dropping droplets into clouds. It's turning on that machine that I have shown you over in Alaska. Turning on that machine and focusing the radiation waves from that machine in Alaska to wherever they want to have a hurricane or severe storms. That is additionally what is going on. Okay? Don't believe NOAA. Don't ever believe NOAA. Okay? Anything to do with the government, walk away from. I will keep giving you updates on Hurricane Lee every night. We need to keep an eye on it. This is not good. Okay? It's not good at all. Now I want to talk about Maui. I decided to put this video up, and I'm giving him complete credit for it. The reason I'm doing that, you're going to find out as we go through here.
Potentially thousands of children remain missing in Maui, and the survivors there, they're fighting to survive each and every day. The U.S. is sending our taxpayer money overseas, the border is under attack, and it feels like all hell is breaking loose. But for the Vice President of the United States, it's celebration time. Sadly, Kamala's party had to come to an end so that she could briefly compare all of the tragedies the U.S. has encountered.
Not only a place on our calendars, but a place in our collective memory. December 7th, 1941, September 11th, 2001, and January 6th, 2021.
Transgender. It's made very, very cool through the media.
Give me a second, guys. That's not good. That's not something that I wanted you to see right there. Somehow, YouTube did. Give me a second here. I can't believe they did that. Doggone it. Just hang in there with me. We're going to get this back. What's aggravating What is aggravating is this never has happened.
You see this black box right here? Well, I'm going to show you something right now.
Remain missing in Maui, and the survivors there, they're fighting to survive each and every day. The U.S. is sending our taxpayer money overseas, the border is under attack, and it feels like all hell is breaking loose. But for the Vice President of the United States, it's celebration time. He's ready for bed.
Anyway, I just think that there are other things on leaders' minds, and they respond to what's needed at the time. And look, nobody likes having celebrated international meetings if you don't know what you want at the meeting, if you don't have a game plan. He may have a game plan. He just hasn't shared it with me. But I tell you what, I don't know about you, but I'm going to go to bed.
Joe Biden became the first U.S. president to skip attendance from all official 9/11 anniversary ceremonies that took place in the USA. The White House provided a very solid explanation for him playing hooky.
When I asked a White House official why it is that President Biden was here and missing the 9/11 commemorations at the attack sites, the analogy that I was given is that 22 years after Pearl Harbor, U.S. presidents were not still going to visit Hawaii.
President Biden said he clearly remembers standing at Ground Zero on September 12th of 2001.
Ground Zero in New York, and I remember standing there the next day and looking at the building. I felt like I was looking through the gates of hell. It looked so devastating because the way you could, from where you could stand.
The thing is, Joe Biden was actually in Washington, D.C. on that day.
My sympathy go out to our colleagues from New York and Virginia in particular, but all those who have had their fellow citizens and their constituents victimized by this act.
Why did he say that he was there the next day? Because he wasn't there the next day.
Well, he went about a week or so after the attacks with other members of Congress to see Ground Zero for himself and have a chance to talk and thank the first responders. He just attributed the visit a little earlier in the remarks than what had actually occurred. But he was there. He did go to Ground Zero.
So that was a mistake. He just
he attributed the visit to a time which was actually turned out to be about a week after the attack.
Okay.
Biden seems a little confused about that day and also displayed more of that confusion during his recent press conference in Vietnam.
Let's see.
President Biden did kick off his 9/11 anniversary speech with a joke.
Governor Dunleavy, it's good to see you. Governor and I have something in common. We're both from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I wish I had him playing in my high school ball club when I was playing. But I could have been an All-American, have you in front of me.
Many people are looking back through internet archives and are realizing there's one person who may have been right and actually predicted the major catastrophic event before it took place.
BuzzFeed dug up an old quote from Donald Trump talking about a large-scale terror attack 19 months before 9/11. In his 2000 book, The America We Deserve, Trump wrote, "I really am convinced we're in danger of the sort of terrorist attacks that will make the bombing of the 1993 Trade Center look like little kids playing with firecrackers." Trump also mentioned the mastermind of the attack, writing, quote, "One day, we're told that a shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escapes back under some rock, and a few news cycles later, it's on to a new enemy and a new crisis." Trump.
Wait.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on a second. Is this really Trump before 9/11? Have you read this?
It's 2000 in his book.
Are we making this? Did you make this up, Mika?
Nick.
I did.
Did you make this up?
Yeah,
Nick,
exactly.
tell us it's over, right? Because
Will
you're
you
wrong
stop?
about everything.
Mika, stop. God.
I don't think it's over.
What's that? What's the rage here? Will you stop
No,
picking
it's
on
cute.
him?
I think it's cute.
Well,
go for it.
no, really quickly, though. I mean, so Willie, that was
2000.
In a book he wrote in the year.
There will be no answers as to where the children of Maui are.
The mayor of Maui will not say how many children are missing. What we've been told is that officially there are about 100 people who have died in the fires, but there are 1,000 people missing. Every time an illegal alien child at the border caught a cold during the Trump administration, it was national headline news, AOC pretending to cry outside the gates. But 1,000 people potentially dead in Maui, many of them, if not most of them, children, and nothing, a media blackout.
On his podcast, Joe Rogan and Tulsi Gabbard spoke about the U.S. government screwing over the residents of Maui to take their land.
A governor going on television after a massive tragedy where we don't even know the number of people dead yet. You have this massive area that's been burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
And then he starts talking about taking it over for the state. That's an insane position to take.
It is.
Post-tragedy. When people are suffering at their most, they can't even believe it happened.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden he's saying, we're going to take it for the state and make a memorial? How about give the fucking people their homes back? We were looking at the amount of money that was accidentally sent to Ukraine. Like they oversent $6 billion. And then I said, well, how much would it cost to rebuild every house in the Maui fire? And it's $5 billion, $5 billion something.
Yeah.
Like that's just like accidental money. Yeah. But there's no talk of doing that. Yeah. There's no talk of doing that. Isn't that interesting?
The way it's happened 2 or 3 times now where the Pentagon has said, oh, we miscalculated how much money we had set aside for Ukraine. So we have an extra $4 billion to send now that we didn't know we had. And this has happened a few times. Secretary of State Tony Blinken went to Kiev yesterday promising, hey, we're going to give you another $1 billion now. And this is the thing. When I was out there in Maui, person after person was like, Tulsi, tell me what would happen if we started to call ourselves Ukraine. You think they would give us some money then to take care of our families, to fix our roofs? That have been torn up by the hurricane winds that came through, to make sure we have clean water to drink. You think they might pay attention to us then? And
what was the process of actually putting this all together?
And then FEMA comes out, the FEMA director comes out and does this press conference. I think it was at the White House. Someone said, well, what are you doing for Maui? She's like, oh, we're giving a one-time $700 payment to everybody who's been impacted by the wildfire. A one-time $700 payment.
Only right we take a moment to hear what just a few of them have to say.
Because this was not a natural disaster. I would like actually samples taken from the soil. You guys put the screen up. You won't let anyone see what's going on inside. But we know very well that you guys, as the third largest stakeholders, the state, do want that land and can take it when you deem it a natural disaster. And that is disgusting.
It was not a natural disaster. This emergency proclamation is a fall. Funny how all the common people were taken out in one fell swoop of a fire.
I 100% know with every fiber of my being that this was not a natural disaster. This was a planned attack. There are many, it's a 1 + 1 + 1 = 3 equation. You cannot call me a conspiracy theorist for being a critical thinker. Did you know that the CIA, the corrupt CIA, invented the words conspiracy theorist as a way to gaslight people for speaking up on the truth?
The footage I'm about to show you, it's yet to be confirmed as to the actual location, but it does appear that Maui police officers are refusing to let Lahaina fire victims onto their own land.
His escort.
I request the recognition of my rights in my territory.
Okay, for this moment right now, this is a line that can't be crossed at this moment, okay?
Yeah, I beg to differ with you, officer, and I know that likely you're in a dilemma. However, you must realize that this is my territory and my rights to have free access to my territory.
Okay.
It is the law.
Right now we're just going to hold the line for a moment here. We've got to take care of some things.
For a moment, so you're going to let him in a moment?
Officer, that is not your business, is not my business. My territory is my business.
Yeah.
South ACP?
No, I'm TAC.
You're TAC?
Yeah. I'm
okay,
South
so
Dale
that's
for a
good.
second.
South ACP? Yeah. Okay, that's good. And, okay, so then we'll need one more.
So police are breaking the law by not allowing, I forget what section that is, but not allowing Bill Jones on his own territory this morning.
Oprah Winfrey just responded to the negative backlash she's received after asking for cash-strapped Americans to fork over their money.
The People's Fund of Maui was created by you and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, in which you both poured time, effort, and millions to kick it off yourselves, yet and still it faced online criticism. I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give your thoughts on that.
Well, this is a really great point about being happier in the midst of an onslaught of being terrorized and vilified online. I will say this, I came out of this experience, I was just saying this to Arthur this morning, with so much more compassion for young kids. I am the master of my own fate and the captain of my soul. I was so excited. I was so excited about it.
It's still a good idea.
And then I got up the next morning.
You still should be.
Yeah. I was so excited. I got up the next morning and I saw all of this vitriol and I was like, whoa, what happened here? Those people are going to get a notice from the People's Fund of Maui and going to have the money.
And it's working. It made me deeply mad. It made you deeply sad.
Made me sad that
and I'm
we're at this
wondering how you're
state in
coping
our
with that.
country,
Yes.
you know?
Nick Sorter said, there are two types of billionaires in this world. One is Elon Musk, who shipped over 650 Starlink internet kits to 40-plus organizations across Maui in order to reconnect victims. The other is Oprah, who's funneling money into one of her organizations from middle-class folks on social media. I haven't met a single person here on Maui that's gotten a dime from Oprah, but I've met dozens that have benefited tremendously from SpaceX's internet connection. Is it too much to ask Oprah, who owns over 2,200 acres on Maui, to step up?
Okay, I'm sorry. I turned my sound down for a few minutes. I was coughing. I'm sorry I turned the sound down for just a second. I'm back. I'm disgusted by what Oprah did. Her and Dwayne Johnson put up $5 million apiece. Allegedly put up $5 million each for a total of $10 million. And they told the people of Maui and Lahaina that those people that had been displaced and lost everything would be getting at least $1,200 a month until they were completely back on their feet. And she urged other Americans, she even urged other Americans to donate to their fund to give those people a firm hand up. But what's been happening? Almost nothing. Millions have been poured in for Maui wildfire victims. I want to take a few moments myself and explain how some of that money has been distributed. Okay? Dwayne and Oprah put up that $10 million to the People's Fund of Maui. About $800,000 has been raised online from people that also were able to contribute. Winfrey and Johnson promised to give $1,200 a month to fire victims. Now Oprah has come out and said the world must apologize for Maui's fire disaster. The world must apologize for Oprah's statement. You can't make this up. This is too stupid to make up. The world must apologize for the Maui fire disaster. What does the world have to do with it? The only thing it has to do with the Maui fire disaster is the politicians on Hawaii trying to gain access to that land. Mayor Bisson and the governor of Hawaii just a week or so before signed a law into being whereby if there was a natural disaster, that developers would be given free rein to do whatever they needed to do to build back. But it had to be a natural disaster. And what happened? A week and a half later, there was supposedly a natural disaster. Mayor Bisson and his crews first said it was the Hawaii Power's fault. Sorry, that didn't last very long. It was not Hawaii Power's fault at all. It had nothing to do with the fire or the power, because the power had been shut down because of high winds. Again, the politicians have to answer for their stupidity. They wanted that land so they could redevelop it. And the police, you just saw the police putting up a police line, a yellow police plastic line, telling people not to cross it. Yeah, folks, what a deal. And still the police are not allowing people to go back on to their land. Even the people whose homes are there and haven't been touched, Police Chief John Pelletier has some answering to do. Has a lot of answering to do. Okay? Getting back to Oprah. Their team says so far over 2,200 applicants to their Maui Fire Victims Fund have been fully verified, and they will be notified this week about the disbursement going directly into their bank accounts, with more being verified every day. About half of that has already gone to more than 5,000 victims through a one-time payment of $1,000. The urgency is always there. It couldn't come out fast enough, according to Nicholas Winfrey of Maui United Way. Winfrey of the United Way said, "We have been working around the clock." Quote, "I was sleeping in my office. Everyone was all hands on deck." They said millions of dollars have been poured in to help residents who lost everything in the Maui wildfires. Many are wondering, where is all that money gone? The biggest pot of donations is over $110 million in the Hawaii Community Foundation's Maui Strong Fund. Over 4 weeks later, they've given out nearly $19 million to nonprofits. $19 million to nonprofits, so the nonprofits, most of them being churches, could give the money to people who really needed it. Because the churches would be there and know who's there and who's not. Now, we've seen major disasters literally all over the world. We just saw another major disaster over in Morocco on Friday. As of last night, over 2,800 people are dead. 2,800 people are dead over in Morocco. And that number is going to skyrocket in the coming days. Over 2,500 people have been injured, and that number is also going to skyrocket. Yes, there will probably be some people that are still found alive. With these kinds of things, that does happen with these earthquakes. But as the days go on in Morocco, there will be less and less people found alive and more people found dead as they try to unbury their towns and cities. Some of those towns are way up into the Atlas Mountains, where the epicenter of this earthquake was. Those poor people. Those poor people. A lot of those people are not rich either. They're just scraping by. We have to say prayers for those people. It's a sad day, but more and more tragedies are happening. Major acts of compassion. A community that comes together like never before. Maui United Way by itself has raised over $10 million. Wildfire survivors can still apply for the People's Fund of Maui online, and nonprofits are still accepting donations. Folks, before I go further, you guys know that I mentioned Eric West. For the past 2 or 3 weeks, you know that I've talked about Eric West. Eric West sent me a t-shirt. He sent me a beautiful t-shirt here. You guys may not be able to see this. It's not really coming out in the light here. It's got Eric West's name in the middle of the circle. It's got his name in the middle of the circle here. On the outside of this circle, guys, it says HawaiiRealEstate.org, luxury realtor. And then it's got his phone number, and up at the top, what does it say? Live Aloha. He and his family and several others that have come into being with him have also raised money for the people of Maui. Eric West and his family immediately distributed the millions of dollars that they got hold of, that people donated to them to go to those people in Maui. But like those other funds that we just got through talking about, Those people, those funds were also donated to nonprofit organizations, most of those being churches, so people could get the money. Again, I want to applaud Eric West and his family for what they have done for the people of Maui. You gotta love somebody that goes out of their way like that. Eric West was persecuted by the police. He called the police, the governor, and the mayor of Maui, Mayor Bisson, liars. He told it like it is. He tried to get those people to come clean. And what did he get for it? He went out there driving, trying to take more video to let everybody know what was really going on. He was stopped by the Maui police. He was issued a ticket for trespassing, and he didn't have his front license plate. In Hawaii, you have to have a rear plate and a front plate. Somebody took his front plate off his truck. So they gave him a ticket for like $75 for trespassing because the Mayor Bisson and the governor had issued a stay out order. Eric West was not even aware of it. So Eric West has to go in to see a judge now to pay a fine for trespassing after the police said you couldn't be there. But there were no barricades up. At the time Eric drove through that area filming things, there were no barricades up. They put them up the day of the fire, the night of the fire, to keep people out and also keep people in. Police Chief John Pelletier issued an order for nobody to leave. And his police kept people in Lahaina who later died. They died. It was sick. What were they trying to accomplish? What were they really trying to accomplish doing that? Making sure more people died? Folks, there's still over 2,000 people missing, including children. Most of them children, I believe. They issued a statement within 3, 4, 5 days after the fire saying that they had identified 115 people. They also told us, and we verified it because I called the hospital in Maui, they have or had 700 people in their morgue. 700 people in the Maui hospital morgue, and it was full. They couldn't accept any more. 189 bodies washed up on the next closest island to the north and west, called Lanai. 189 bodies washed up on the beaches of Lanai. Then, on top of that, John Pelletier and his crews got 9 reefer trucks, refrigerator trailers, and put them on the property, holding 40 bodies each. 360 bodies right there. 700 over in the hospital. That, folks, is 1,060. Add up the 189 that washed up over on Lanai. Now, folks, you have 1,500 bodies. 1,500 bodies. I'm asking again, and I've been asking this for days and weeks now. Where are the children? Where are the children? I will not sleep and get restful sleep until we find the children. A bunch of school buses are missing. What happened to those school buses? What happened to the school buses? Now, I don't want to go off on a conspiracy theory that I heard this last week of tunnels over there in Maui. And allegedly Oprah Winfrey knows about it. I want to know where all those school buses are. I want to know where those children are. And where are the parents of missing children? Joyce Rod just put that up in our chat. Where are the parents of the missing children? And why are they not aggrieved and upset? Why are we not hearing from those parents? Have they been shut up? Or have they been put out of their misery? Or were they just some of the adults that passed away in the fire? Inquiring minds want to know. I'm outraged. I'm completely and outwardly outraged. Now, before I go any further, I got a letter today at the post office. Tiffany from Fruit Heights, Utah, sent us a donation, so I want to take a moment and thank her, Tiffany, for sending us a donation as well. Then, one of our own here on the program, NanoGaf, who you guys know here in the chat, also sent us a donation with a cute little card. Knowing how much I love dogs, and cats for that matter. I have 2 dogs. I used to have a beautiful cat. She got sick and I had to put her down. Doctor said she only had another day to live or so. But now I've got 2 cats, or 2 dogs here, and I had a dog prior to this as well. Or 2 dogs before that. But anyway, NanoGaf, thank you for your donation as well. I do appreciate it. Tiffany, thank you ever so much. Now, I want to thank holistic nurse Ava Murray. She said that she was tired of me drinking water right out of those water bottles. She said it was disgusting. I got another water filter from her. She has her own company. I've been using it. As you can see, I've used a little over half of this water bottle here. It's about 20 ounces of water. Actually more than that, about 25 ounces of water. And it's extremely clean, extremely good. So I want to thank holistic nurse Ava Marie for that. A wonderful lady, a wonderful friend that's been with me for 4 years now. Anyway, let's go on. Again, this is September 2023. It's National Preparedness Month. Have any of you written your emergency plan yet? I'm not going to stop talking about it. One of the other things I want to talk about tonight, and I'm very upset about it. Not upset that it's happening. I'm upset it's not happened soon enough. Studka Vlovskov says Moscow's hit daily and still no response. Keep that in mind. We're lucky to be alive yet. And that's probably true, okay? I'm sorry, we do not get news events published here in the United States because no one tells us about them. If you want to give me news that I can put up about your country, send it to my email. My email address is here on the chat. It's here all over. Send me an email and I'll put your information on the air. I have no problem talking about disasters and world events, especially when people's lives are in danger. The next story I'm upset about only because it's not happened quick enough. The House of Representatives of the United States of America began an impeachment of Joe Biden, president. 30 to 45% of Democrats are saying that Biden did something wrong, possibly illegal. 35 to 45% of Democrats. This is a large number. The impeachment process is further along than the mainstream media will let you know. This is a process. It's a long process. The impeachment process takes a long time. Just knowing this sense of corruption goes a long way. We've been talking about his corruption and his family's corruption for like 15 years. He's been doing a lot of things wrong. The general sense of corruption is really important. The level of corruption is evenly distributed on both sides of the political spectrum, Republicans and Democrats. But Joseph Biden, President of the United States, you would think, yes, I don't believe this man has his thinking cap on. He's senile. He's got dementia. He was put into that position by puppeteers. And as you saw at that speech in Vietnam, he didn't even know where he was. He didn't know what he was talking about. And towards the end of it, he said, I think I'm going to go to bed. I've never heard a president ever say that. But the level of corruption is huge. It's distributed on both sides of the political spectrum, Republicans and Democrats. Outside of the corruption stuff, it's impossible to justify the re-election of Joseph Biden. And yet here he is, an official candidate for the office of President of the United States. Biden has done a terrible job. It seems sometimes that he is 115 years old. Yet he's in his late 70s. He cannot string 3 sentences together. Under normal circumstances, he would stand no chance of getting reelected. Now, with everything going on here, this is another story. More sooner than later, the investigations are going on. They're going on. Biden is a puppet, being told what to do and what to say. He should never have been elected. Why was Joe Biden elected? People padded the election boxes. We allowed voting, open voting, to happen for 3 weeks before the actual vote. 3 weeks before the last office would close and there would be no more voting, period. Biden said there was no corruption going on. The Democrat establishment said there was no corruption in that election. And yet, boxes of ballots floated in through the back door of election headquarters in every city and state around this country. Boxes and boxes and bags of ballots were brought in throughout the night. The doors were closed. The time of the election had ended. Most registrar of voters' offices closed at 7 p.m. And if you wanted to vote, you had to be in line before that time period, and they would allow you to vote. But for anybody else, they were not supposed to allow in. And yet boxes and boxes and bags of votes were brought in under the color of darkness. Just as recent as 2 weeks ago, another box of ballots had been found in Michigan. Another box of unprocessed ballots had been found in Michigan. Boxes of ballots had been found in Georgia and Arizona. Yet, the governor of Arizona, Ms. Hobbs, just thinks, oh well, I'm elected now, you can't get rid of me. Oh really? Your Republican opponent thinks otherwise, and she just won a big battle this past weekend in court. The Attorney General in Georgia should be arrested as well. She was voted into office as Attorney General of Georgia with the same issues that Biden and other Democrats had across the United States. People with money funded her campaign who were supposed to not be allowed to do it. A lot of money flowed into her campaign that should never have been there. It was given to her illegally. And they again went to the election boxes and she got elected. And now she's trying to prosecute President Trump for fraud. So here we have the Queen of Fraud trying to call the kettle black. The Queen of Fraud calling the kettle black in Georgia. We'll see where that ends. Okay? I think you're going to see Joe Biden resign. Biden will resign the presidency because of his health. Kamala Harris will take over, much like Gerald Ford did in 1974. And that will be the end of her career. If you remember what happened to Gerald Ford, Nixon resigned office and went to his beach house in San Clemente, California, that was given to him by B.B. Rebozo, one of President Nixon's friends. Gerald Ford was put in office as President of the United States. He had not been elected president. He was not even elected vice president. Richard Nixon had a man named Spiro Agnew, who was his presidential running mate. Vice President Agnew was taken down by fraud. Not by fraud, he was fraudulent. Agnew was beat up in the courts and he went to jail. Nixon appointed his new vice president, Gerald R. Ford. So for the first time in our history, we had a president that had not ever been elected. Why? Why did Nixon resign? A little thing called fraud again. At the Watergate Hotel in Washington. Suites at the Watergate Hotel were occupied by Democrats. And Nixon had a team of what they wanted to call plumbers. And the plumbers, many of Richard Nixon's friends, broke into those suites of rooms in the Watergate Hotel. And they got caught. And it came full tilt back to President Nixon. And Nixon also had some tapes, some recordings that he tried to hide. And as it came down, everyone around Nixon came down before Nixon did. One of Nixon's advisors went to prison. And now, unless he's died too, he came out of prison and became a preacher. Turned his life around and became a minister of the gospel. Hurricane Heather says, and I agree with this, Biden makes Watergate look like a joke, like a party. But Biden will soon, I believe, resign, and he will give his vice president, Kamala Harris, the reins. Again, Kamala Harris will be the second U.S. president never to be elected to the office, and she is worthless. Kamala Harris is worthless. The general consensus of this country is, whoa, we didn't know this. The truth is coming out. It's leaking out slowly like a slow leak of a faucet, just like Watergate. Now, what might have seemed to be the right thing to do in the mid-70s in the White House, handing over power to Gerald Ford, who I still believe is a nice guy. Well, he died a few years ago. He was doing his best that he could do under the circumstances. But to have a vice president and a president that were as corrupt as they were was unreal. And now we've got this same scenario happening now. Like I said, it might have been the right thing to do for the country at the time, but maybe not. So could we all move on? If any of you remember what went on with Watergate and such, it was a really bad deal. The whole pardon deal was a deal that was cut in the dark. Of course, the vice president was going to pardon the president of the United States so an ugly trial would not develop. And so he pardoned the president of the United States. But the whole deal was cut in the dark. All of us know that our political situation is in our own countries. And all those deals are all cut in the dark, under the cover of darkness. Our country's entire futures are all cut in the dark, and have been that way for a very long time. That is the reason that we are in the trouble that we are now, that we may not be able to recover from. We may not be able to find the other side of this thing at all. even with a possibly better future ahead for all of us. I don't think it's going to happen. Anytime a president would pardon one of his closest allies, is this ever a good thing? Or is this like putting a Band-Aid on an infection or a cut, where things get even worse? If this happens and Kamala takes over and she pardons Biden, are we going to see any historical parallels here? Is she also going to pardon Biden's son? A lot of things came out after a laptop was left at a repair shop and the owner didn't come back to retrieve that laptop, and it was later found to be the owner as Hunter Biden, son of the president. What I would like to do here is ask all of you a question, maybe a few questions here, if you will. Does what happened in 1974 apply today? Does it apply? Given our political situations, do you think we are in the same country? Sometimes I wonder whether I was transported out of my country and I won't be allowed to back in. Now, I personally think, after having talked to many of you and a lot of other people, both here in the United States and around the world, I think the population is looking for an excuse to say no way. No way. I've said those same two words many times. I think that Kamala Harris taking over will be the last final straw that breaks the back of the United States of America. The last final straw that breaks our back. Some of the stuff that we have seen gets easier to see and understand when we find shell companies. Shell companies that are laundering money to line Joe and Hunter Biden's pockets. Recordings all of a sudden that are found with Hunter Biden telling the leaders of China and the oligarchs of Russia and UKR, you have such and such amount of time or I'm going to tell the big guy. And the big guy, as it turns out, is Hunter Biden's father, Joe. It started a lot of years ago when Joe Biden was vice president. And it gets worse. We have all these shell companies running around. And the laptop left at the repair shop. The Democrat Party and Joe Biden tried to sweep that under the rug, saying it didn't happen. It was not Hunter's laptop. Then it was found that it was Hunter's laptop. And there was a lot of damning information on it. Videos and pictures of him doing heroin and cocaine. And just a few weeks ago, cocaine being found at the White House. The heaviest security building in the world. Supposed to be the most secure building in the world. And cocaine found there. And the FBI not coming clean about whose it was or where it was found. I know for a fact, between the FBI and the Secret Service, they do know who left the cocaine there. There are cameras all over the White House. Visible cameras and undercover cameras. They know who left that cocaine there. They're covering it up. Lie after lie. Money from the United States, from the U.S. Treasury, being sent to enemies of this country, China, UKR, and Russia. Ukraine was not a friend of the United States until after Joe Biden became president. Joe Biden even went over to Ukraine. Joe Biden, before he was president, had even been in financial dealings with Ukraine, with his son Hunter, as a great big huge leader in Burisma, the Ukraine oil company. Does everything keep coming together? Joe Biden, the president, as the ringleader in this whole thing, to get money into the Biden crime family? Biden and his son getting paid illegal money and hiding that money? The general population of the United States might not see things or see what has been going on. If Biden remains, we're in trouble. If he resigns, like I think he will, Kamala will end up pardoning him just like Gerald R. Ford pardoned Nixon. Biden and his cohorts in crime think that all of this criminal activity will just go away. They are counting on the public forgetting criminal manipulation, criminal corruption. Biden does not want Hunter to go to jail. He himself doesn't want to go to jail. Would you, if you were in Biden's shoes, want to fight your last years of, or weeks or months of life, fighting to stay out of jail? This would all be a moot case because we know that Kamala would pardon Joe Biden when he resigns. This is all going to come down to one thing. What happened to O.J. Simpson? What happened to O.J. Simpson? I was a cop. I followed the trial. I had friends of mine in LAPD. I knew what was going on. What happened to O.J. Simpson? Someone found the glove, didn't they? Then in open court, Judge Ito, a good man, told O.J. Simpson to put on the glove. O.J. Simpson could not do that. He had huge hands. The glove that was brought into court never should have been brought into court. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. That's what's going to happen to Biden. He's going to get slapped on the hand and go away. The Communist Democrats want to get out of this. They may now have found a way out. Put Kamala in and run the scumbag from Commie, California. Who is a scumbag from Commie, California? Or Commifornia? We've talked about him for a long time. He's young. He's not as senile as Joe Biden, but he has become very successful in turning the state of California into a communist state. And everybody that lives there knows it. And everybody who is in charge of Biden, all his puppeteers, George Soros and everyone over there in the Bilderbergs, have been waiting for this day to turn the entire country of the United States of America into another communist puppet. Bringing Gavin Newsom into the picture and running him for president would make sure Kamala left office. And there probably would not be another woman president for a very long time. The whole goal of these people since Obama was in office was to reformulate the country. That was Obama's statement. So he was going to transform America, and that's exactly what he did. Obama has had his third term in office in the form of Joseph Biden. And the entire goal was to make this one final step into total totalitarianism, a dictatorship. Yes, I believe that they're going to run Gavin Newsom for president. That they will turn full speed and tell us that Trump is too old. Look at Joe Biden. Look at what Joe Biden couldn't do. Trump's going to be the same way. The problem with that idea is President Trump is lucid. President Trump has everything on the ball. If they put up Newsom, the communists will find a chance to finish their takeover of the United States. President Trump is our one last train that we need to climb aboard to make sure that he is once more put into the power of the President of the United States if they don't try killing him. That is the worst scenario possible, to take out Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump is in fear of his life. He has his own security that he pays for. He has a secret service that will do anything to protect the president. The Trump train needs to step up and make sure that Biden and Kamala go down hard. They need to make it look to the entire world that Biden, Harris, and Newsom are so bad and will destroy the world if given a have a chance. Hunter and his dad, Joe, need to be punished. The President administration must be destroyed to make sure there is punishment meted out. Punishment has to be meted out. We must teach a lesson once and for all that you can't get away with this. And this is the worst corruption in American history. Does it work to convince people that punishment is the final answer? Will this even work? Glenn Beck made a statement earlier today that I heard. I don't know how to judge Americans anymore. Unquote. Glenn Beck has a pulse on this country, and sometimes I think the entire world. He knows what's going on. But even now, he is admitting, I don't know how to judge America anymore. The evidence against Joe Biden is so overwhelming. Red flags are popping up all over the place. Those red flags started flying against Biden years and years and years ago with the Fed. There have been unlawful money transactions that alerted the Fed, and someone at the Fed ignored those red flags. because they knew who Joe Biden was and who Joe Biden was going to be. So ignoring those red flags of unlawful money transactions, they continued on. Biden and Hunter Biden have both ignored everything and anything and anyone telling them they can't do it. And now, it came out today. Can't make this up. It came out today that Biden's grandniece, working in the Treasury, sending emails to Devon Archer, who's a whistleblower now, sending emails to Devon Archer about something involving an economic conversation in China that she happened to be attending. She made all the notes and sent them to Devon Archer so he could have that information. Again, more evidence of the Biden crime family. His own grandniece having her fingers in it as well. Biden going after Trump in Florida, in Mar-a-Lago, Florida. Sending in the evil FBI under the cover of darkness when President Trump wasn't there. Raiding President Trump's residence. Planting false information. Taking pictures of things that they planted so it would look as the former president had committed wrongdoing. Lying about President Trump. Unreal. Joe Biden weaponized the U.S. Department of Justice, including the U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland, the FBI Director Christopher Wray, and the entire staff of the FBI. The FBI needs to be disbanded completely and gone through like former Director Herbert Hoover, or not, I'm sorry, now I can't remember his name, Edgar, anyway, you know who I'm talking about, the former director of the FBI. He used to go through every person that ever worked as an FBI agent, no matter where they worked or what they did. If their background wasn't squeaky clean, they could not work in the FBI. At one time, I wanted to become an FBI agent. I hate to even say this. Mr. Hoover in the FBI used to write to the Mormon Church, asking the Mormon Church if they had any missionaries that had come back after their missions, that were looking for jobs with the government as a federal officer. Mr. Hoover hired former returned missionaries, missionaries who had worked for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints for 2.5 years of their life. Mr. Hoover used to hire them in to work for the FBI because he knew that they were trustworthy. Lately, the FBI directors have been stupid and have been conniving and lying through their teeth. We could not find another clean FBI agent there if we tried. Now, I told you that Joe Biden's grandniece went to a meeting in China and sent emails to Devin Archer so he could have that information. We have not even talked about all the witnesses, the close business associates that had been heavily vested or invested in Biden's presidency and Biden's vice presidency as well. I can't forget about that. We can't. Now, all this evidence has come forward now. And all this evidence has been found true. A lot of people have come forward on the record and said that. A lot of people have come forward to say that all of this is true. I'll go back to Joe Biden's office of a former vice president. His office had, FBI went in there and found boxes and boxes of classified documents. They went over to Biden's house in Delaware and patted around with soft-soled shoes and found more classified documents from his time as vice president and now president, hiding in the trunk of his Corvette and on the floor of his garage. And like I said, his former office of the vice president of the United States after he left office. No one was even there. That office was not even guarded. Who knows who had been in there since Biden left there and went into Washington. All this evidence, guys, all of it. Nothing's going to happen to Biden. The U.S. DOJ is not lifting a finger to go after Joe Biden. But Joe Biden has committed the same crimes that he has said that President Trump did. President Trump didn't do a damn thing wrong. Joe Biden has, and continues to do it, sending more and more money to UKR. How much money do you think it would take to rebuild Maui? $5 billion. $5 billion is what it would take to rebuild Maui. Every home and business in Maui that was destroyed by fire. We just got through sending $6 billion to UKR. And now they found another $5 billion that, yeah, it could be sent to Maui. Do you think it will? I don't think so. I don't think so. Beth Wolf is here in the chat and says, we need laws, boundaries to give us order so we can live together. Absolutely. Absolutely. This kind of crap that's been going on for so very long must come to a screeching halt. Now, we've got one more thing I want to talk about before I leave politics, and yes, I have some emergency information for you. We don't have much longer. We don't. Former President Trump is facing 4 indictments that would put him away for 400 years. President Trump's Secret Service detail would not allow President Trump to go to jail because they would have to evacuate an entire floor of a prison to even allow President Trump to be there. That's not going to happen. Biden and his crowd have already said that they'll do whatever it takes to make sure another conservative will not come into the White House. More threats of fraud. What am I talking about? You and I, all of us together, all of us throughout the United States together, must stand up and tell Biden and his stupid cronies that we are not going to take this any longer. We need to stand up and tell them no. Tell them no, hell no. This weekend, a governor of New Mexico violated federal law, usurped the First and Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, made it null and void in one county in Albuquerque, New Mexico. No one is supposed to carry a weapon of any kind in Albuquerque or the county. I think it's called Bernillo. Is not allowed to carry a weapon openly or concealed. Really? How many former, past, and present retired officers do we have that have either concealed permits or carry them open all the time? We're not willing to give them up, Madam Mayor, or Madam Governor. And guess what? The governor started getting her comeuppance. She was taken to trial before a federal judge this morning to answer trial in front of a judge for treason, for usurping the power of the Constitution to herself and rewriting that Constitution for herself. Taking the guns away from a bad guy would be the thing to do. But Madam Governor Grisham decided what she needed to do was take the guns from the good guys and maybe the crime would settle down. That will never happen. If you take guns from the good guys, the bad guys will still have the guns. I hope Miss Grisham gets hers. She may lose her office for her stupidity, and I hope that happens. I hope that she is sent to prison. I called the office of the federal prosecutor in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We are talking with the federal prosecutor. I'll be calling them back in the morning. Okay? Yes, Menacing Muskrat, we're talking about the Second Amendment. The governor of New Mexico for 30 days is telling no one that has a weapon can carry it concealed or open at all. The only people that will have weapons open or concealed are the bad guys, the gang members, the people that are continuing to kill others. So she issued a health advisory. Her whole deal was a health advisory to stop the proliferation of guns by usurping the Constitution. She does not have the power. And now she may go to jail over it. A governor, a stupid butthead Democrat governor. Raymond Royce, Sr. says she's going to get a pink slip. Probably. Probably. Now, as for that butthead over in Georgia, I'm trying to work on her as well, to get her kicked out of the Attorney General's position. I have a feeling that there's a lot of people, higher people in life than me. They're trying to get her taken down as well. At least I hope so. Catherine Sigerson said just before Morocco earthquake, it was hit with a CME. We were all hit with a CME. CMEs are not a private thing. CMEs just don't go to Morocco. Okay? We are all being hit constantly with CMEs. We're in a position with the sun where it's no longer solar minimum, it's solar maximum. We're seeing these solar flares being launched from the sun almost daily, sometimes many times a day. Because there's been so much going on, I haven't kept you in touch with the CMEs, but I will. I'm going to try to get our buddy Mark to come here on the air and talk about it with us. I think we need to hear from him. So I'm going to be calling him tomorrow too, along with all the other things I'm working on. Anyway, I have something else that I need to discuss with you. I told you that someone this past Saturday asked me about a radiological life straw. Radiological life straws do exist. Since 1980, every nuclear utility that owns a commercial nuclear power plant in the U.S. has been required to have an on-site and off-site emergency response plan. For example, the San Onofre nuclear power plant did not sit in the city of Oceanside. It was north of Oceanside in North San Diego County. San Diego County had its own nuclear response plant. San Onofre had theirs as well. And they worked together. Twice during the time I lived and worked in San Diego, there were issues with the San Onofre nuclear power plant. No one was asked to shelter in place. There was no leak outside the perimeter of the San Onofre nuclear power plant. But in a state of emergency did exist twice. In order to maintain their license to operate those plants, they have to have a response plan. It's a condition of obtaining and maintaining a license to operate the plant. These response plans are approved by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the NRC. Off-site plans, which are closely coordinated with utilities' on-site emergency plan, are evaluated by FEMA. San Diego counties and Oceanside had an emergency response plan, and I believe San Clemente also did. Those response plans were reviewed by FEMA and provided to the National Nuclear Regulatory Commission, who must consider the FEMA findings when issuing and/or maintaining a license. Federal law establishes the criterion for determining the adequacy of off-site planning and preparedness. Plans and preparedness must be determined to be adequately to protect the public health and safety by providing reasonable assurance and appropriate measures that can be taken off-site from the plant in the event of a radiological emergency. Although construction and operation of the nuclear power plants are closely monitored and regulated by the National Nuclear Regulatory Commission, an accident, though unlikely, is possible. There have been accidents at almost every power plant in the United States. How do I know that? I've been watching those things since I was a kid. The potential danger from an accident at a nuclear plant and its exposure to radiation. There is potential danger. The exposure could come from the release of radioactive material from the plant into the environment, usually characterized by a plume, a cloud-like formation. The area of the radioactive release may affect is determined by the amount of radiation that was released from the plant, wind direction and speed, and weather direction. Those of us that have been doing disaster drills, those of us that have had anything to do with emergency preparedness anywhere in the United States, including the military, we have access to various programs that will give us information so that we can help establish protocols to handle various disasters. I had to get a new phone. My phone this past week died on me, and I finally got a new phone yesterday to replace it. So I'm kind of just going through here trying to find this one app that I use when something's going to happen. It's called Wiser, W-I-S-E-R, Wiser. Those of us that work in this industry, whether we're first responders, hazmat specialists, EMS, hospital providers, or preparedness planners, we have this app. Through this app, we can gain a lot of information, such as wind speed and wind direction, in case of something really bad happening. I'm one of those. When you go further into the app, it asks what's new, search known substances, browse by category, help identify chemicals and tools. This is a great app for those that are like I am, that have experience in these fields. That way we know what's going on. We can know what's going on. There is a book that's put out, and it might cost you $12, $15 to have. It's called the ERG 2020 book. It identifies known chemicals and substances that might be dangerous. First, like a gasoline tanker driving down the road. The placard on that tanker says 1220. That 1220 shows up in the ERG and tells us exactly what that substance is, how bad it could be with heat or sparks or anything about it, including its toxicity. If it exploded, does it have toxic fumes that would spread to the nearby community? And we can use that information and get the wind speed and direction, and we can help formulate a plan for an evacuation of a city and or a neighborhood. And it's very helpful. It's telling me that the new ERG 2020 is now available. I already have that. They're also for people that aren't in the United States. You can also get this for yourselves. French translations are now provided for limited ERG specific content, an ERG guide page, and mostly protective distance data. Spanish translations for this content are coming up. ERG materials without a UN, a labeling process new for the ERG 2020, are now handled both internally and within the Wiser Sharing app. Why am I telling you this? Those of you that might be working with your local preparedness people, you need to be aware of that app. It's called Wiser. It's called Wiser. Right there. I use this almost once or twice a week now. You guys probably ought to know about that. Now, we talked about a radiological cloud, a plume, we call it. The area the radioactive release may affect is determined by the amount of activity that was released from the plant. The radioactivity that was released from the plant. Wind direction, speed, and weather conditions, rain and snow, which would quickly drive that radioactive material into the ground, hence causing increased deposition of radionuclides, nuclear fallout. If a release of radiation occurs, the levels of radioactivity will be monitored by authorities from the federal and state governments and the utility to determine the potential danger in order to protect the public. We talked about the radiation straw. The radiation life straw removes up to 99.99% of radiological and other contaminants. Okay? Menacing Muskrat says we have MSDS here in Canada. Yes, you do. And that's basically what we're talking about with the ERG-20. MSDS sheets. Material Safety Data Sheets. They are awesome. Now, I want to show you something here. This life straw that I'm talking about, right here, this is what it looks like. They're selling for $34.95. Right here. $34.95 each. Now, there's one more image that I want to show you before we get out of here. It's this location right here. This is where you could buy those life straws. It's called nukepills.com. Chemical, biological, radiological emergency protective supplies. www.nukepills.com. The telephone number for them is 1-866-283-3986. If you live outside the United States, you need to use your country code. And then the United States code is 1. Okay? That's how you get hold of that company. Or you can find them on the internet at nukepills.com. I told you that I would be finding this information for you. Stuka is saying only available for U.S. citizens. Yes, it probably is, because you, being from Russia, can't get into this information either, unfortunately. Your president will not allow it, unfortunately. But I wanted to make sure you had this information. I thought it absolutely necessary for you to have. You guys are the ones that turned me on to it, and I did the research so you would have it. Rochelle says that's a great price. I think I spent over $50 10 years ago. Do you know how long they last? Not very long. It filters and produces up to 25 gallons of great tasting water. It'll protect your family with clean, safe drinking water in the event of a radiological emergency. It's tested to EPA/ANSI protection protocols and the National Standard Format Standards 42 and 53 by Broward Testing Laboratories. It's environmentally safe. It does not pollute the countryside. It removes up to 90% of fluoride, which is a dangerous cancer-causing substance. It's 100% free of BPA bisulfonyl A. Bisulfonyl A. It's compact, it's lightweight, and easy to use. It will fit in your backpack or even your purse. It's NELAC tested and approved for up to 99.99% removal of the following radioisotopes. All Seychelles, boy, I blew that thing. All Seychelles water filtration products have been tested around the world for their efficacy, and they have been proven to offer the greatest reduction per containment in the industry. This is where you ask me how long they will last. The question's been asked, will the filter wear out? The filter itself will not wear out per se. However, the maximum filtering capability gradually diminishes. 25-gallon limit. A 25-gallon limit for using the radiological water purifier. Can only filter up to 25 gallons of water. NELAC, that I mentioned there, is the National Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Conference. NELAC. It's a cooperative association of states and federal agencies formed to establish and promote mutually acceptable performance standards for the operation of environmental laboratories. Basically, if a lab is NELAC accredited, you can trust its findings. I was asked how they work. These water filters are made using electromagnetically charged resin, and that attracts different contaminants in your water like chemicals and heavy metals. As water passes through the porous body of the water filter, these impurities are drawn out to the surface walls of the filter, where they remain trapped. Gross beta particles, radon-222, plutonium, uranium, cesium-137, 134, radium-226 alpha. Those are the radiological things that they will filter from. So at least you'll have water during a radiological emergency. Does anyone have any questions about anything that I've talked about tonight? Does anyone have any questions? I know I've covered a lot. And yes, a couple of times I've gone on a tirade. And I think I've had reason to do it. I don't like tirades. I don't like getting upset about much of anything. Some things will upset me, and I believe everyone should be able to figure out where they're at and also be able to take care of business. And I hope each and every one of you can do that. Now, I've chosen for a devotional tonight. Hurricane Heather says, what kind of straw should I get? Just a regular life straw will do. $9 or $10 cost for it. Right now, I don't think we're in a nuclear Well, that's not true. With the possibility of nuclear fallout being imminent. And what do I mean about that? Putin and his generals keep telling us almost daily that they are going to destroy North America. They're going to destroy the United States of America and England. So you may want to contact that company, or say if you already have a regular life straw or several of those, you can get one of those radiological life straws. It's only good for filtering up to 25 gallons of water, but at least you would have it in an emergency. If Russia lets loose one of those high-powered, long-range nuclear vessels, as Chekhov used to say, I'm referring to Chekhov in Star Trek. I just happened to watch that. I love that movie. I love the characters. I love the programs. I'm a Trekkie. Anyway, tonight I've chosen for a devotional some scriptures that I went through a few months ago. This is the book of Acts in the New Testament. I'm going to go to chapter 2. I'm primarily going to stay with verses 32 through 38. This Jesus hath God raised up, whereof we are all witnesses. All of us, you and I, every one of us. Rochelle D., I'll talk about water UV light purification tomorrow. I've had some experience with that. Carol West says she has a regular eye straw she got at Walmart for $17. Yes, they've probably gone up since I got mine. Anyway, let's go to this devotional here. Acts 2 verses 33 through 38. Therefore, being by the right hand of God exalted, and having received of the Father the promise of the Holy Ghost, he hath shed forth this which ye now see and hear. For David is not ascended into heaven, but he saith himself, Lord, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand, until I make thy foes thy footstool. Talking about the prophet David in the Old Testament. Okay? Here is Apostle Paul talking about David and the Old Testament. Until I make thy foes thy footstool. Therefore let all the house of Israel know assuredly that God hath made that same Jesus, whom ye have crucified, both Lord and Christ. Verse 37. Now when they heard this, they were pricked in their hearts, and said unto Peter, and to the rest of the apostles, this is what we are talking about tonight. Men and brethren, what shall we do? I'm asking each and every one of us here, men and brethren, what shall we do? The answer is in verse 38. Then Peter said unto them, repent and be baptized, every one of you, in the name of Jesus Christ, for the remission of sins, and ye shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. Unquote. That's where we're at. Every one of these scriptures is for us. The scriptures are our guide. They're our guide in front of us. They will give us help. The scriptures will give us comfort. when everything else is falling apart. The scriptures should be with you. In your emergency preparedness kit, I would love to see each and every one of you have a set of scriptures yourself. Each member of your family, each member of your home should have their own set of scriptures that they can read, that they can mark. Mark is their favorite scripture, or mark as an important scripture that you can go back and see and revisit over and over again. Have a set of scriptures in your preparedness kit. Rob52 says here in the chat, thank you all for being here tonight. Till the next time, may God bless you and come after you. I want to thank everyone here myself. Thank you for being here. Thank you for partaking in the Spirit with us. Thank you for being family members and friends and members of the Lord's kingdom here on this earth. God be with you. God bless you and hold you in the palms of his hands. Spread this program all over the world. Your family and extended family, your friends and neighbors, social media contacts, and even the people you work with. Everybody needs to hear what we talked about tonight. It's pertinent for everyone. We need to take back our countries. We need to take back our cities, our states, our neighborhoods, and even our homes. Home is where you live. It's not just your home, it's your sanctuary. Make your home the Lord's temple, a place to get away from the world. Menacing Muskrat is asking the question to all of us, do you have the scriptures on your preparedness list? If not, why not? Make it happen, brothers and sisters. Make it happen. I love you. I love each and every one of you and your families. Please take this tonight as something that is loving and in the presence of God. Love yourselves. Love each other. Never let a moment go by without telling the people you love so much that you love them. Let them know. Never let a day go by without telling people that you love them. It's important. Brothers and sisters, God be with you this day and always. God bless you. God be with you till we meet again. We will see you around the corner. Good night, everybody. I love you very much.